Hey there, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jen Walker-Wall. I'm the founder of Work Wonders Careers, and I'm here with some friends today, and I'm so excited to dive into what I hope will be an affirming, inspiring conversation that I think is pretty timely. If you're not familiar with Work Wonders Careers, or if you haven't checked out our little pep talks that we host here on LinkedIn before, welcome. If you are a replay viewer, welcome. You can learn more about what we do over on our website at workwonderscareers.com. And today we're going to be talking, I've got some special guests here, as you can see, about cultivating the good life in challenging times. So I have my friend Suhayl and Susan both here. They are both Tauruses. If you're not into astrology, no worries. I think you'll still get a lot out of this. But if you are into astrology, I think you're going to really appreciate this curated panel of Taurus friends who are going to help us sort of figure out how to have a life in what feels like wave after wave of really challenging, difficult, crushing news. I don't think I'm over saying how devastating some of this stuff has been, especially in the last few weeks. So thank you for taking time out of your busy day to either join us live or watch the replay. And I'm going to dive right in with some introductions on our guests. So I'm going to read them a little bit so I don't miss anything. But Suhayl learned the language of flavor and palate development during 8 years of working for Taza Chocolate in Somerville, Massachusetts. She was the Urban Grape Wine Studies Award for Students of Color in 2022 and is currently Director of Consumer Engagement and Communication at Trois Noirs over on the West Coast. I was saying earlier that it was giving me like high school French class flashbacks to say the name of her employer now, but I got through it. And I miss you terribly on the East Coast, but I know you're thriving in wine country. So I'm excited to chat with you about that. And Susan is here in the Boston area with me. She's a program evaluator and mental health advocate with over 10 years of experience pursuing social change through evaluation, research, social work, and organizational development. She enjoys writing music, travel, and nurturing relationships, and also LARPing, because I was creeping on your social media and I was like, I didn't know this about. So we're gonna have to come back.
Okay.
We're gonna have to hear more about that. If you're here and watching, feel free to say hello. I see Pamela and Rayshana here too. Long time. It's just a really group of friends today. So I'm who knows better about the good life than a Venus influenced person. Thank you, Rayshana. I knew Rayshana will appreciate the direction we're taking. So if you are here and watching and you have comments or questions, please feel free to drop them at any time. I have some questions I've prepared for my guests here, and I think we should just go ahead and dive right in. So I was thinking about, we've had this scheduled for several weeks because several weeks ago things were challenging and hard. And I feel like I was trying to decide, candidly, is this like the best time to have this conversation, or is it like the worst time to have this conversation? I really wasn't sure. Like there are times where it feels like cultivating a stable, predictable life is really challenging. And I think in the last week things, and I think we're expecting some more bad news. So everything just feels like a lot. But I'm really glad to have you two here. And I was saying to Suhayl before we got on, I'm glad I'm not the guest expert today. I'm just going to ask questions and take notes and take some advice from my Taurus sisters here. So Suhayl, maybe you can answer this first and then we'll go to Susan. But can you tell me what cultivating a good life means to you, especially in this current context?
Wow. Yeah. Coming in with the softball questions from the beginning, huh? Awesome. I feel like I think about cultivating a good life every day. And that's part of my answer, right? Just thinking about what are the small things that you can do every day to feel good in your body, feel good in your brain, feel good in your work. It's not about this grand gesture like, oh my gosh, I'm going to flip everything over, all of a sudden in my life. It's about what are these little things that are super pleasurable, that are easy, that can kind of like help me move through the day and keep smiling. If I can like get those little things down, they add up, they make me feel good, and I can keep going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but also recognizing that I don't have to have those little things all the time, and I can't be that smiling person all the time.
Mm, that was such a good Taurus answer. I need to know more about. It's very, very practical. You know, you just need a little wine and a little chocolate every day. That's what I heard. maybe we diversify the portfolio. We can talk more about that.
Absolutely.
Susan, do you want to share?
Yeah, Suhayl, I'd really love to build off of what you said about like the daily practice and also
Yeah.
holding compassion that like just because we have those practices doesn't mean we're going to be happy. Doesn't mean we're going to be joyful. It means
Absolutely.
creating conditions where joy can happen and where pleasure can happen and being consistent about that, even if we're crying. Like, when is a better time to like give ourselves chocolate and wine than when we're upset? And even if we're not happy on the other end of it, that's okay. Like, we still are doing that and practicing being kind to ourselves and good to ourselves. And that helps us be kinder and better to other people too in times of distress too.
100%.
So yeah, thank you for emphasizing that daily habit piece. And something I'm thinking about, like a lot of folks, I've been in and am in mental health treatment. So I'm going to like give a big shout out to my providers who have shared this idea with me that like every day, try to do something that you need to do. Try to do something that is fun or you like, or is for leisure, even if we're not in a state to experience that fun, and do something for self-care. And like, you know, different things can feel like they're different buckets at different times. But that's something like I come to when I'm at my, you know, times that are really low or times that are really challenging. Just like if I can do one thing in each category, each one is important. Like, don't let any of them slide. And of course that means like there's some days where I just binge TV, right? Or just work, but the most I can strive to have that kind of balance. I think I'm the better for it. So
That's so true. Shout out to mental astrologers, mental health providers, holding this whole thing together at this point. I don't know what else we really have here. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more like about these practices or habits, or like what are the things that, you know, that bring you joy, and how you've come to them. Like, what are the shifts you've made to sort of better take care of yourself since it's, you know, for the last couple of years, vaguely speaking. Susan, do you want to?
Sure. One thing is how we'll share that I did a mindfulness based stress reduction course that included like a daily meditation. And I was miserable throughout it. I was doing half an hour meditation in the morning and I was just grimacing, like, I gotta feel better, gotta feel less stressed. And it was literally the day before it ended that I was talking with the instructor, like, the last class. I was like, why is this so hard? And they were like, because you're not approaching yourself with love. I was like, oh yeah, I'm approaching myself with an expectation of that result rather than love. So I think that throws back to what you were sharing too. So I think what I try to remember, I get into, because I'm a Taurus and I'm a grounded earth sign, I get a routine, I stick with it, and I stick with it, even if it's not bringing me joy anymore. And then I finally crumble and then we start over again. So I think my routine has evolved, but trying to keep in mind, like, let me spend some time, dedicate some time every day to whatever is making me happy now, whatever is bringing me some joy. So currently what that looks like in the past month or two, because I got back from vacation a few weeks ago, so I'm still like finding a new routine. But I try to spend like 10 minutes doing something for my body every morning. That looks like either physical therapy. I saw Kate in the chat talking about stretching, just kind of checking in with like, do I need some like arms? Did I sleep weird? Or otherwise just like do some stuff for core strength. Try to give that time. Then try to do like about like 10 minutes for my mind, and for whether that's journaling or meditating or going for a walk. Again, I try to let that be flexible, but just set that intention of I'm here to help settle my mind. And then I've been the walk kind of double counts, but then trying to go for a walk in my neighborhood and pay attention to the flowers and birds. Honestly, paying attention to flowers and birds is so settling. So I try to like start my day with all those things, because then even if I don't get to them later in the day, even if things are really busy, I know that I've carved out that time and space. And it's done something good for me, even if I don't necessarily feel it actively. So, yeah.
I love that. I could have a whole conversation about bird watching, but yeah, but let's do How about you, Suhayl? I know, right? It's a whole, yeah. I feel like I have little pets all over my neighborhood at this point in time.
Oh, I
I'm not
love
sure.
that. You would absolutely love being in Napa.
I bet.
Oh.
I bet. I know when I travel, I'm always like, oh, I want to see the birds there. I want to see what kind of birds they have.
The opportunities for bird watching abound.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. How about you, Suhayl? Like, can you give us a little insight into like how you take good care of yourself amidst
Yeah, I
all this?
mean, absolutely. I have to say, the past 6 months have been the opposite of routine for me. Because I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. I landed in one part of California, then moved to a different part of California about a month ago. Started a new job, started a whole new industry. So routine, not there, not happening, except for one thing that I've been able to kind of like continue to keep as a touchstone. And it's something from childhood. And it's just like the simple act of putting on lotion, which is something that just kind of like brings me back to a sensory moment where nothing else matters. Like, it engages scent, it engages sight, it engages touch. And it reminds me of like being a little kid and like being around my family and getting ready to like go out or go do whatever you needed to do for the day. And that's kind of like the only thing that I've been able to kind of like come back to and say, okay, cool, everything's going to be fine.
That's such a great example, right? Like none of these are time consuming, lengthy, like, 3-hour morning rituals. They're like really, truly small acts
Yeah.
that you can implement pretty easily, which I love. And I love the idea of like a full immersive sensory experience with the lotion. You get a lot of you get a lot of mileage out of something like that, I
do.
imagine. Yeah, yeah.
And then it helps me in turn be a better wine person. It's, all of the benefits.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm curious about that. So, I know you've actually in the last couple of years, both of you have like switched jobs. So, can you tell me a little bit, like, what is it like? I consider changing jobs for a lot of people. It's not like an option. Like a lot of people are job searching because they are really unhappy or are unemployed and like really need to figure out what's next for them. Like what is your what did you learn about your time job searching through some part of this chaos that might be helpful to others who are trying to strike a balance between like their personal goals and like just keeping their head on straight?
I have to say the biggest learning that I had was to let go of what I thought my career would look like. And to really learn how to kind of connect the dots, because I had had such a varied job history already. By the time the pandemic hit and I got laid off, I was a little shaky, but I thought, okay, I can definitely cobble something together. And that language was something that I had gotten from my therapist at the time. She was like, "You're a cobbler. You can put stuff together, make it work." And I was just like, yeah, I can.
Once again, therapist for the win.
Therapist for the win. So, I had to really sit with the idea that I wasn't going to have this long career in one industry. And that everything that I had done up until that point did contribute to where I am now, but it didn't have to be the exact same thing. And, kind of learning that and unlearning this idea that you have one job and that's it was instrumental in me just taking more chances and putting myself out there for roles and opportunities that I never would have had I not had that moment.
It's interesting to hear you say that you had to let go of what your career would look like, because I feel like you had a lot of really good jobs for you and also landed a job that was like cut, like handmade for you. So
Yeah.
it's interesting because like when I look at your journey, like I don't see that you ended up or even like took a detour, but the experience of feeling like the things aren't lining up or they don't make sense or you don't see how to get from point A to point B is a very real, unique experience. But
So real.
obviously one I never I never saw for you, but I know that what it feels like and what it looks like are very different things.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. Susan, how about you?
I also made much less of a transition, although it felt like a very huge transition at the time. I work in program evaluation, and I'm really inspired by the idea of pursuing social justice, and especially around mental health, mental well-being, and just like I want everyone to be happy. I don't know. I know it's like a simple thing, and I know that there are incredibly complex solutions to that, so that can be approached from many different angles. I had been working at an agency working for child mental health as a program evaluator, and then kind of moved to an organization that addressed issues more broadly, and just found that I really need something with more of a direct link to mental health and well-being. But there are very, very few jobs at mental health organizations. There exist, but just very few, and not at the pace that I wanted to continue growing my career. So I moved to a consultant role at MXM Research Group, which I'm really loving and getting to help people from outside the organization. But I think what had been really helpful as I found this job and had some like painful experiences of being rejected from some jobs and also rejecting other jobs. Like it's very painful to turn down a job offer when you've worked so hard for it and just realize it's not the right fit. So both are very painful. And I think feeling like what are the North Stars that I'm not going to be able to compromise on, and what are the things that I can like trade off if there's a trade-off there. So something that I had like so I guess that's some advice. And then I think like the other piece is that the self-care and all that, I found it very hard to think about like how can I both need like more self-care at this time because these times are so hard, and I have less time because job searching. So I think some of the things that one thing I wish I did differently was take a mental health leave. Like if anyone out there is considering that right now in your job, like if your job search is informed by panic, it's like you deserve that time for yourself. You deserve that time to take care of yourself. And if you have professionals in your life, talk to them. If you don't, talk to folks who might be able to help you find that way. So that's one thing I wish I did. But things I did do was try to think like of like the tiny version of the things that bring me joy. Like I didn't even have the capacity to do a lot of the things that brought me joy. For example, like I write music. I'm in a band right now, which I'm very excited about. But like writing music is cognitive energy I just didn't have. And yet it's one of the things that brought me the most joy. So like the mini version of that was I got on the phone with a friend every other week and we just like improvised dumb, silly songs and traded back and forth with prompts like, make a song about squares, like literally the shape square or whatever, So, I think if you have like, if you do any art, like what can you do? Like the paint by numbers version of it. I picked up cross stitching, like things that just are easy. And for me personally, I felt very guilty doing these things because I'm like, well, shouldn't I be like expanding this hobby and growing and stretching myself? Like, no, it's not that time. It's that time to like put you at the center because, sorry, I'm going to soapbox for like another minute if that's cool.
Yeah,
please do.
I felt so guilty for much of my life of putting myself at the center of anything. And then when I imagine a world, like, I don't know, if you feel comfortable, like, please feel free to close your eyes. I'm going to close my eyes for a second. You don't have to at all, totally. But like, imagine a world where everybody just felt peaceful and happy. We would not have this shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that stuff here, but like, we would not have it. Somebody who is happy and peaceful in their own life does not make the kind of decisions that SCOTUS made. They do not make the kind of decisions that take away people's autonomy. They do not make the kinds of decisions that hurt other people. If we invest in ourselves to make ourselves peaceful and happy, it is not selfish. It is community building. It is helping us be able to be there for others. So like, those things like, self-care is important so that we can do community care. Both are essential. All right, my little soapbox.
I think that's a really important soapbox. I so agree with that. I've had plenty of time to binge a lot of TV shows and there's so many right now where there's like very wealthy people clamoring for more wealth. And I'm just like, don't you have enough? Like, this looks exhausting. Like, have you ever thought about just taking the money you have, cast of Succession, and like being
and billions.
Okay. Yeah, billions, Yellowstone. I'm just like, I get what it is, but it's like, is it ever enough? Like, it doesn't take much for me to be like, this is enough work. Those are my Taurus placements kicking in. But it's kind of incredible to me what compels people, and compel might not be the right word, right? But like what enables or allows people to kind of seek power and money in this way that feels so counterintuitive and unnecessary to almost everyone else I've ever met. It's definitely a paradox. And going back to the break, something I've seen in clients in the last 2 years probably more than like the 6 years I was doing this before, are sabbaticals, like not time in the office, not time between jobs. And I think there used to be a little bit of a stigma, like people know it's easier to get a job when you have a job, but something changed over the course of the pandemic. And I think it's people's risk calculation. Like the scariest thing was not getting another job. It was being exploited endlessly with a job who also didn't care if you lived or died.
Right.
And sort of that like social contract eroded so much over that time period that I think it gave people permission to make decisions that they wouldn't have before the pandemic started. And just in case that feels like an impossible thing to like let go of an income, I think I'll speak on behalf of everyone here. Like, all of us really value incomes.
Very true.
I occasionally check in with my mother to be like, are you sure I'm not a trust fund baby? Like, you're not just trying to keep me super humble. You didn't want me to just grow up and work hard. Like, you're not hiding any money that I don't know about, right? And so far the answer is like, no, there's no trust fund, but I keep asking. But I've seen people even do things like take part-time jobs or take consulting work, or just cash out PTO and live off that for a while. So I think I've seen people also be creative in this time, because I don't think people just like woke up and thought like, hey, I've got 3 months salary to burn. I think people were really creative in trying to figure out how they could unplug from a full-time miserable job and do something part-time, much less miserable, much more constrained in their day-to-day life, that helped them take some time to like heal and figure out next steps.
Yeah. I'm going to challenge myself to do this. So I invite other folks to do this too. If you are in a position where you can also like, I very generously had a friend who I don't actually know, whatever, I don't know their financial situation, but was like, I will help you if you need to leave your job. And so if anybody is in a position where they can do that for a friend, even if you don't know a friend who's struggling, like, just like reach out to someone today and be like, just so you know, I got your back. I got your back if you're in a position to do that. And if you're not, hopefully someone's reaching out to you to tell you that soon.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think we're going to need a lot of that kind of in our communities going forward. Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about what balance looks like and feels like for you right now? If you think about balance, and maybe give us a little insight into what you're balancing, like what feels like priorities for you.
Ooh. Susan, do you want to take this one?
Sure.
Or, yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting that you didn't say work-life balance. You just said balance.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think like, what am I balancing? And I feel like the major thing is like grief and hope. Like, honestly, that's, especially in challenging times, that's the balance. Like, I need to give enough space for myself to grieve what's gone, grieve what's hard, rage, and find hope for that future. So I think like the little changes, like the little micro versions of the things that give me hope when there's a period of despair. Obviously, I'm not trying to like bring myself despair when I'm in like a really good period, but yeah. And I think like for me personally, like just setting, in terms of balancing how I spend my time in pursuit of that, having strong start and stop rituals has been really helpful. If anyone else is looking for that kind of like concrete thing. I have a timer that ends my workday and tells me to go dance to a song. It's like, that's how I'm going to end my workday, with a dance, because transitioning and like transitions are hard. So yeah, I wonder if like balance. I think like transitioning versus balancing might be the resonating word for me too, about that. Like,
Oh,
how
I
to
like
make
that.
transitions effective between the different areas. Yeah.
I'm with you on transitioning for sure. That I would say, right now balance is fleeting. And there is a lot of balancing of grief for me, working within an industry that is definitely not associated with grief at all. um, and really kind of sitting down to think of what that looks like, where I'm talking about wine all day, and right now is this really kind of heady time in Napa where nature is doing its thing quickly, and we're kind of panicking, but like not, making the best of it. And kind of like being in this summer mode and rosé all day, and balancing that with like, oh my God, the Supreme Court is a trash fire and I don't want to be sad. And it's a constant transition of like, okay, you are going to be sad and you're going to carry that, and that's okay. And I'm giving myself grace to be able to carry that around, but still do my job. Because I know that if I just stay in grief, it's going to be worse for me down the line. And then, having that striking that balance between the two then allows me to come back and say, okay, today was a really good day. You have a kind of clear brain right now. What can you do to make this grief different, and to make it smaller, to just kind of like move through it in a different way? So that's the balance that I'm striking right now. And I find it, in different ways. Sometimes I think, Susan, you mentioned sometimes it's just watching TV all day. Other times it's like, okay, I cannot get up at 8 a.m. to start my day. I'm going to get up at 10, and I'm going to let everybody know that that's what's happening, and nothing is going to break. And that's fine. And I'm, and again, I'm in a very fortunate position where I am in a role where I can do that. And I can say, hey, I am on a really small team. I really need to just like have 2 extra hours this morning. I'll talk to you on Teams in like, a day or so.
I need 2 hours. We'll talk tomorrow.
Because sometimes it's minute to minute, it's changing, and you're just like, all right, well, yeah, this is what's happening.
So you're right, Susan, that I didn't ask about work-life balance, because I think it's beyond work-life balance at this point. And for those of us who are working at home, like it's just life work. It's difficult to make those distinctions. But it sounds like you both have work environments that, are responsive to what's going on. And I imagine that goes a long way to helping you and feeling empowered to have these routines and habits and ask for what you need. And I'm actually really glad to hear that, because I don't hear that all the time. I know that, it's been very difficult for people to get kind of any sort of break at work. But it sounds like you are able to some degree, manage your workload and take care of yourself, which is good.
Yeah.
I see Pamela in the chat saying thank you to everyone for sharing insights and experiences. I appreciate them too, Pamela. I hope you're doing good. I think Pamela has like a new business.
Awesome.
If anyone else has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I have a couple of other things I'd love to get through. Any advice you have for people who are, I'm not even sure if burnout's the right word. I feel like burnout isn't fully capturing like what people are experiencing, but I think that's the term we're using. It's like, I can't do stuff. What is your advice for people who are having a hard time maybe unplugging from media, or even engaging in community work or plugging into opportunities to be engaged and connected. Because I think the pandemic left people like isolated. And I think for a lot of people that's continued. Any thoughts on sort of helping people connect and build community in these times?
Yeah, I think the temptation is to completely unplug from media, and my advice is don't do that. And it seems counterintuitive, but I can say that I've been able to find so much community by staying plugged in that I wouldn't necessarily have found otherwise. And that comes with its certain set of drawbacks, but taking the time to engage with someone, if you're on Instagram and that post really resonated, DM them, because 9 times out of 10 they're going to appreciate that you are hearing them, viewing them, seeing them, and like agree with what they're saying, or appreciate what they're saying. I've had 3 instances now since the pandemic started where that's exactly how I've made friends that I speak to as deeply as anyone that I've known for like years and years in my life. And it was just because we had that one moment where like it clicked, and I was just like, I'm inspired by what you're saying, and I'm going to tell you, even if that's all that happens. And then all of a sudden it's a conversation. And then all of a sudden it's like you're meeting in a different city,
You mean you are using social media to socialize?
Yeah, crazy, crazy thought. But go figure.
That's not what it's for. No, I love it. That's great. We have Rayshana has helped us out, of course.
Yes.
Burnout, cultural despair.
Thank you, Rayshana.
I've been using the word despair a lot lately because I feel like that's what I'm seeing. I think that's about, like, burnout feels like something you can fix, to be frank. Right. This feels like more significant and more structural. Like, I don't know what like a cultural burnout situation is, but it does look a lot like despair. Susan, did you want to jump in on the question?
Yeah, just want to echo what Suhayl said about like the feeling seen is so nourishing, and we literally don't, depending on positions, literally are not seeing other people. So like, yeah, just even like the chats in this are warming my heart so much, and it feels so great to to hear from Rayshana and Pamela and Kate and everyone. So thank you for helping me feel seen. And I'm taking some inspiration to like go DM more people now for sure.
Yay.
I think that something else that I think was really helpful to me as I was in like the personal flow of our cultural despair, was trying to do as much like co-working as possible, or co-anything. So like, I wanted to read a book, so I posted like, literally, anyone else want to read this book with me? And whether that's like reading it simultaneously, like not a formal book club, but just like, hey, how's it going? Or like, let's find a time on the calendar for an hour where we just read, and see what that's like. And not a lot of people bit, but a few people did. And it was really nice to feel not alone in that way, and to feel like I created some space for someone else to take a break, and be there. So we're, again, like still connected, like it's still a video chat, but it's a time that's like dedicated for ourselves too, and feeling like you're not alone.
I think it's so important that like when you put something out into the universe and only a few people bite, that like a few people is enough. In these times, like it really is. Like, I think that people really struggle to be alone and to build connection, and that all of these crises have made that a lot harder for people. So a few people is a big win in my book, and doing things together that are simple and easy, like don't require a ton of effort or time. Like they're like quick little wins. Maybe part of that, like good healthy self-care and community building, and just like very nourishing, and a reminder that like there's such goodness here as well, right? Like it feels like we're being ruled by a lot of terrible things and terrible people, but when I really look at my social world, like I don't see anything that remotely resembles that. So those quick little meetups can go a long way.
Absolutely. And to your point about quick little things, I've also changed the way that I use my social media and even my phone. And the power of the voice note is real. because that's a great way to connect when you don't have a lot of spoons and you're like, I don't want to send another text message, but I really want this person to hear my voice. And I want to be able to like connect in that way. It's like, great, you take, the 30 to 60 seconds to say what it was in your text and maybe giggle a little and get a little more context and send it. And it's just like, when you get it back, it's just like, yay, it's a little love note. I love it.
I do love a good voice note.
Yeah.
I actually use Voxer a lot. Do you guys use Voxer? It's like a voicemail app. So like it's how we leave, like it's like an asynchronous voice messaging app, and you can have like group chats and stuff. So that's kind of a fun little tool.
I'm
to
gonna
kind of,
check
especially
that
if you've
out.
got friends all over the country, you can kind of all be plopped into one group voicemail. It's better than it is.
No, it sounds great. Vox app. V-O-X.
Yeah, it's Voxer, Voxer.
V-O-X.
Yeah.
Voxer.
I use it a lot with work, but I use it a lot with friends. It's a good way to keep in touch. And I don't know, sometimes to open my text messages, there's a lot of stuff in there I like don't want to look at.
Yeah.
I get too many text messages asking me for money from the Democratic Party.
Oh, God.
They've got some stuff to do. So
Oh, boy.
I've started responding to the text. That's my coping mechanism. So as we're wrapping up here, so if anyone in the comments like wants to add any thoughts or questions, I'm happy to hear from you. I guess I'm curious, like what parting wisdom, from your Taurus, your fire and your earth here, like what is your advice to people who may be feeling really overwhelmed right now and aren't sure, whether it's worthwhile to pursue personal goals or how to engage in collective social justice work? Any thoughts, since you guys both seem to like navigate all of that? I'll say seamlessly. I know it's not seamless, but I've seen you both balance personal and political work, right? So I'm just, what would your advice be?
Susan, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I think parting words in general or specifically about
both, either.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a stack of books that I was like, maybe I'll reference them. And I'm realizing I have a book I did not put in the stack, but one I will shout out is, oh no, my blur. There we go.
Oh, yay.
The Language of Emotions by Carla McLaren. She breaks down the idea that emotions are bad, that that there aren't good emotions and bad emotions. All emotions are telling us something about ourselves or the world or what we want or what we need. And that emotions become challenging when we don't pay attention to what they're trying to tell us. And one thing that has been very powerful for me is the idea of sadness as an emotion telling us to let go. That despair is that something is gone and I need to let go of it or I'm going to be consumed by that despair. Like I do not live in the same world I lived in last Thursday. And the more I resist that, the more despair I'm going to feel. But the option isn't to say, well, I'm not going to feel despair. The option is freaking feel it. Yeah. Let it move through me. Let it move through my body. Let me, even like a practice of just like literally like slumping and letting go can help feel that and let it come to its completion so that I'm then ready for what's next, which is building something new. And that's something new. I wish I didn't have to, but I need to do that. I need to work towards that. So, again, like how do we move and how do we bridge that self-care and community care? I think one thing that I am super grateful for, and again, feel very privileged that I was able to do this, but I was at an organization that really prioritized racial equity and social justice and paid for some professional development in those areas. So was able to do this training on racial equity leadership that really, for the first time, brought in the idea of trauma as part of how we can build a more equitable world and as white people do undo biases. And reading my grandmother's hands has been so transformative for me. This idea that like there's what we think in the world, and then there's like our reactions and like the built-in biological responses. And we don't have power over those in the moment, but we have power over changing future moments. And we have that by, some of the same things that help mental health, like mindfulness, being in touch with our reflexes, taking a pause. Like those are all things that are so important to my personal mental health, my personal well-being, and are also going to make me be a better person showing up for racial equity, for social justice, for anything where I feel uncomfortable and where it's hard. So I think, again, like building that similar, like building something for myself, but intending it to be resonating is going to be a powerful way for me to do that, and letting that be enough sometimes. Like it's not enough, period, but it's enough sometimes. So encourage folks to, again, if that's continues to be a goal, that's one way.
Thank you. I love that. Suhayl?
That's awesome. Kind of on the same wavelength as Susan, I think about something that a yoga teacher would always say, and I'm sure many of them say this, but if it's available to you, get into this position, right? So that to me says, like, think about what's happening in the here and now and do that. Don't think about what happened yesterday. Don't think about 5 years down the line, because I'm literally talking to myself. I'm very good at that. I'm like, okay, I have an idea, but I have to think about what it's going to end up being in 2 years. And it's like, no, stop. What is available to you right now? If what's available to you right now is an ice cream cone, have the ice cream cone. Don't think about like what it's going to feel like 2 years from now, because you can deal with the here and now so that you can get to 2 years from now. Right. So that's what always comes through for me. Thinking about like social justice work. What is available to you right now means what can you do right now? If you cannot go outside and protest, what can you do? How can you support those people who can? That's something that's kept me really steady, I would say, not necessarily balanced, but steady and steadfast in kind of like how I approach everything that's happening right now in the world, because wow, trash fire, put me on the next spaceship. But, like I keep thinking, I keep coming back to, okay, well, what are the things I can do right now? I can, make sure that protesters who are outside have enough water. I can donate to funds that are very specific in my area. I can make sure that, I can be a safe person if someone needs help, needs to be bailed out, like there are all these different ways to be involved, and they are available to me right now.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. When I started doing yoga, I thought I would turn into like a super flexible person. But with the only thing that really changed, which is I think probably more profound, there's probably a lesson in here somewhere, is the way I talk to myself. Like it really does offer a different way to engage with yourself. And thank you for that reminder, because I think there's a lot to take away from there. I also, one of the things that I took away from the pandemic, I used to hate spending 60 or 90 minutes in a year, because I'm all fire. Like, I don't, so I can't be like commitment, like I'm trapped for like, and everyone around me is better at yoga than I am, which I can't stand on several levels. But now that I've gotten to a practice at home, it's like, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes. And I'll be the most flexible person in the room. So that's how an Aries copes. I just want to say thank you both so much for giving your time. I know you both have so much going on, and you're living through all of this along, in our company. If people wanted to reach out and connect, what is the best way? Are you open to invitations here on LinkedIn, or what's the best way to reach you?
Absolutely. I'm open to invitations here on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram at Hot and Toddy. I will put it in the comments. But please do reach out. I'm really good at indulgence. So if you need someone to cheerlead you there, I will do that.
I can imagine you being like an indulgence coach. Like that should be
Yes.
like a
That's
it is
like my dream.
I think actually watching your Instagram feed is an indulgence. I'm just like, "That's beautiful. That looks delicious. Yeah, she's right." Like it's just like it's great. It's like going through a little museum on my Instagram feed. It's great.
Thank you.
Susan, how about
I
you?
mean, in terms of future careers, Suhayl, I would love to work with you to help people find what makes them happy and brings them joy and indulge and like, oh, that's such a nice little thing.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
We'll definitely talk
Yeah,
offline.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, please feel free to message me on LinkedIn or send a connection. Just request to like add a message, just even like, hey, I saw you here, or like what resonated with you. I think, to the idea that like, let's use social media for goodness and for connection and for generating things. Would love to just like have that be a generative moment. So that's my only request.
Wonderful. And I saw so many familiar names in the comments. Pamela, Rayshana, Kate, Anna, I saw you pop in. So thank you, friends, for joining. And I hope you are well and stay safe. I'll make sure I'm going to do some recap because I did not even take notes. I was just like fully engaged. So thankfully this will be a replay in just a few moments. And I'll make sure I link to some of the books. And I see Suhayl. I'll get your Instagram on there as well. So
Awesome.
I'll do a little recap. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me and for everyone who joined us to watch. I really appreciate you. Be in touch if you need anything.
Thank you
Have
so
a good rest of your day.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Of course.